on YouTube later for folks that can't join us. So if you're with somebody you shouldn't be with, you can turn your camera off, but it's too late because I've already recorded it and got you now. So appreciate you joining us. Basically, for the folks that are new, been doing this every Saturday at the same time since the pandemic started, thinking that when it's over in 2-3 weeks, we'll go on to something else. And now, we're going on 9 months or something like that. So each week we try to find a subject of Disney themes fairs, theme parks, World's Fairs. Beth gave us a chat a week ago or so on the general. Don Lancaster took us down Route 66 or Route 66. So again, we're trying to find different ways to occupy ourselves during this period of time. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the 1964-65 World's Fair at night. If you went to the World's Fair, it was really great to go to at any time. But at night, it was really something special because for the most part, the crowds really went away. As soon as it got to around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a lot of people started heading home because they wanted to be able to afford dinner at home because the prices of like $1.75 for a steak dinner at the World's Fair were just too high for a lot of families, that sort of thing. Also was great at night because the temperature really went down. Now, the beginning and the end of the fair, it was cool. The middle of the summer, it was hot and humid, and you would be waiting in the lines all day, hot and everything. At night, the temperatures would drop, the crowds would drop, the music was on, the lights were on. It was just really a truly magical time. So I'm going to be going through a number of pictures on it. If you are interested in recapturing the ambiance of the fair, on my website, worldsfairphotos.com, there's a section of audio from the fair. I actually bought the original soundtrack tapes that were used for the background music that played in the fair. And I also have the music from the fireworks show. So if you just want to sit there some night and listen to some music of very low fidelity, music from 1964, it's there. What I'm going to be doing now, by the way, is putting everybody on mute. If you do have something that's urgent, put it in the chat. Don and Carol will be looking at it and let me know if anything urgent has come up. But this just keeps us from barking dogs and things along that line. So let me just mute everyone there and I'll get started. So again, what we're going to do is start with a look at the fair at dusk. So let me just bring up the first picture, come back here, share my screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, here we go. Everybody should see Continental Insurance. So what we're going to do is basically, again, start at dusk. It's really a great time. The crowds are going home. You can still, as a photographer, get some great views of the pavilions because there's enough ambient light to get it. But now the lights are starting to come on. So we're just going to start going through these. They're in no particular order, basically just bouncing around the sort of things you'd see. Johnson Wax, the Golden Rondell there, had their great film To Be Alive, which is now at the company headquarters. They moved the Golden Dome back there, incorporated it into the building in Racine, Wisconsin, and you can still see it. And again, here's a shot, basically all the people getting ready for the fireworks show. Fireworks were super popular. They did a spectacular show every night. And all these people are just lined up at the end of the fountains getting ready for the fireworks to start. Bell System must have paid a fortune for this particular plot because every picture of the fireworks show, there's the Bell System logo right smack dab in the middle of it. So basically what you had was the fountains of the fairs, the arching sprays of water going up to the center pool here, the pool of industry, and during the day you had a water show going in time to music with the fountains pulsing, changing color, and then at night they added the element of fireworks into it. So it really started becoming a special spot at night, our beloved New York State Pavilion. You can see, by the way, that wherever they got their light bulbs, they must get them from the same place I get them from here in my office because they blow out all the time. So you think they would have gotten some light bulbs that could have lasted a year, but didn't work that way. So we'll be looking at the General Electric Pavilion a number of times through this. This was one of the more spectacular lighting elements at the fair. It was a computer-controlled display. The computer that controlled it was roughly the size of, about 3 to 4 full-size refrigerators all stacked together. The lights would pulsate. They could change them in color. They could go frontwards. They could go backwards. The dome could light up solid. The dome, it could do all sorts of amazing tricks. Unfortunately, when they brought the carousel out here to Disneyland, they did not bring that element back there of it. I actually have an ad someplace for GE trying to sell off the slightly used computer that had been used to run it. And I don't think they were even able to find any buyers for it, but it was a process control computer. It did quite a job. So as night's going, the acrobats from Mexico are giving us one last performance out there. And night is coming. Again, I just love how the fairgrounds took on a whole different atmosphere at night. Now the Unisphere, these lights in the Unisphere are really special lights that were particularly made for the World's Fair by a company in New Jersey. And they had multiple sets of bulbs in there because they realized if these bulbs went out, changing them during the fair could be a real problem. So they were having a mechanical device in there that a bulb went out, it would sense it and switch the bulbs into the next position and they would glow. The lights represent the capitals of the world, the nations. There was one additional light that was added to represent the Mohawk Indians that did the steel work at the fair. But again, these are special lights. They're still in the World's Fair, in the Unisphere, but unfortunately they've been disconnected over the years. Boy, somebody keeps trying to call today. I don't know who that is. We're not going to talk to them. Again, more people waiting for the fireworks show coming up. It was very hard to get a spot by the fountain and get a good spot. So people tended to get there 2-3 hours early, just like they'd go and wait for a Disney parade. And again, night's just coming. A closer view of some of the lights out there. And again, nighttime's coming. Again, I just really enjoyed this particular time of night. One of the nice things was my parents would take my younger brothers home. My next brother, Jim, and I could stay, and we didn't have to worry about doing things on other people's schedules. We could go with our own. One other nice thing about the night for a photography point of view is that you couldn't see inside most of these pavilions during the day because the glare of the light would shine off the glass. At night, now all of a sudden you get the peek inside. So here we are at the New England Pavilion. You can get a look to see what the New Hampshire exhibit was like. Chrysler was all lit up with their rocket thundering away. General Motors was interesting because they had colored lights that played across the facade here. So you'd have it one set of colors in one moment and another set it would look totally different. A 1965 view with Big Ole at Minnesota as the sun is setting. And again, all the fountains just going. It was a great time. Again, this is a really interesting area here. Unfortunately, today it's pretty much a stagnant pool in the middle of the park. But this had been the Fountain of Nations for the 1939-1940 World's Fair, and they added an element here of these metal screens, which kind of were great. It hid all the mechanism that was inside. During the day, they would stop. This is a tidal river, so the water would go up and down depending on the tide. So what they would do would stop the water from going into the lake at a certain point in time. The tide would flow it out, and there was a wooden walkway that came out from in front of near the bell system out to these structures. They would bring the fireworks out on a hand cart, load them up during the day, turn the dam back open, would flood it, and you'd never see how they were able to do it. But very, very intricate design that they had. Again, lots of lights, colors, and everything, but these metal screens hid it all. The Kodak giant prints started showing up very well at night. People were convinced these were giant slides, but they were actually prints, special paper with lights lighting them up from below. The luminaires are our favorite street lights from the fair, all sorts of different colors and patterns, which we've actually charted out and figured out what lights went where. That's on the site for people that try to figure out. So a few of us, I don't have one, but a few of us collectors own these, like Mitch and others, and people will go on the chart and try to figure out where their lights were actually structured during the fair. Now this shot of IBM in Twilight's kind of interesting. When they first built the pavilion, they didn't realize that at night it just became impossible to tell what they were selling. There were lights that came in and tried to light up the giant dome, which was done like a Selectric typewriter ball, but it didn't really shine at night. So they came in and replaced several letters with ones that lit up. So you can see two sets of them here. So during the fair, they had to come in with a giant set of scaffolds, go up, chisel out parts of the IBM pavilion, and put in lights at night so that they could get their money's worth for their advertising. And again, it's great, great view. The Bell system was one of my favorite pavilions. It's probably why I ended up working for the phone company later. But I had just the, you know, as they say in real estate, location, location, location. They really had it. Johnson Wax again. And this gives you just a great idea of how the thing looked at night. The prints were nice during the day, but they really just popped and glowed during the evening. And sun setting, we're up here in the top of the New York State Pavilion, the towers. I just got a kick out of this one. You can see it wasn't always hot. The people are dressed kind of warm up there, and the wind is always blowing. I don't think it's ever calm up there. Today, of course, you would not be able to have that amount of open air space. It had to be covered with plexiglass to keep people from either throwing things or jumping off of it, like at the Space Needle. The solar fountain lit up at night. Again, it's getting darker and darker as we're heading into the evening.
Well, we have a request to slow down slightly. People are missing some slides.
Oh, okay, sure. I had so many, I was just trying to get through it, but thank you for letting me know. So the sun setting, this is the GE line for 1964 and 1965. They covered it. One thing you might notice is the air quality in New York in 1964 sucked. That's why the brass rail snack bars, those balloon things in the center of this, would you could actually age them through the life of the fair by seeing how dirty and grimy they were becoming. But it was not uncommon at all to have smog days like this, that you couldn't even see the city, which should be in the background, but it's just vanished. Again, this is a kind of interesting shot. It's the pool of industry. Basically, a lot of the big performers paid big dollars to be around the pool. You had GE there on the left, and right in front you had Clairol, and in the back the Red Dome, Travelers Insurance, IBM off to the side. You notice IBM does not have any lights on it saying IBM, and that's why they added them later. But this was basically where some of the more expensive real estates were, because it was, again, the fireworks show and that sort of thing going on. The fountains just during the day made it a premium spot. This would have been taken from the Better Living Center, which was a pretty much nothing building, but it did give a great vantage. Down below, you could watch candy bars being made at the candy factory. That was Chunky Candy. Over at the triangular shaped roof over to the right, the Parker Pen, you could get yourself a pen pal. But it was just a great spot to come up here at night. People would go and get up to the top of this building where there was a restaurant and way overstay their time for dinner, just because this was the premier dining spot to watch the fireworks show at night. And the theme structure, the rocket thrower, with a little bit of the evening sunset coming on him. You could get some great silhouette shots like this one if you were in the right spot at the right time. And again, it's getting dark. They haven't turned all the lights on yet, but they will be soon. I love this picture. Besides the Taj Mahal, I thought it was one of the best luminaire shots that I had. These things are truly massive. If you're ever up near one of these things, they are much bigger than you can anticipate. Years ago, I had a slight chance to get one, and then figured out getting it from Oklahoma here to the house was going to be sort of a Herculean effort, so I did not do it, and I regret it ever since. Sun's setting down. We're going to be going into nighttime soon. New York State Pavilion in its glory with its plexiglass roof that's sadly been missing all these years. Travel and Transportation Pavilion over in the transportation area. Again, most of these things you don't realize just how intricate they were, putting lights and everything into the design of the pavilions to pop out at you at night. This was one that was kind of fun to restore. You can see it's 81 degrees. It's already, the sun is going down. Still showed over in the GM Pavilion, they had the temperature and time going around. But this was a very, very dark slide originally that I had to do a lot of work to bring back. But again, you can now start to get peeks inside some of the pavilions that you would not normally see during the daytime. Folks going into GE at night, all sorts of speed ramps going up. The sun sets on General Motors. And that's it looking at dusk. So let me come back here and we'll switch from dusk into full-fledged nighttime. Okay, so everybody see the Sweden Pavilion? Hopefully, yes. Okay, so again, fair at night was just great. The luminaires, real colorful. There was a color scheme that nobody can ever figure out, how it was supposed to direct you from the size and shape of the lights towards the center of the fair. After a while, they gave up trying to figure out what it was, but they're just great to look at. The Vatican Pavilion at night, a number of these lights here, the star-shaped ones had made it to the Orange County Fairgrounds in New York. I believe they're gone now. I think the next to last time I was there, they were still there. The last time I believe they were gone. But a lot of these things were sold surplus after the fair ended. Again, Vatican Pavilion. New York State Pavilion, especially nice at night. They did a lot of concerts during the day. You had a lot of rock bands and things like that. You also had folk music, dance groups and that. Here we're getting a more upscale, upbeat cultural event at night. And I mentioned General Motors. It could take on a whole different look depending how the lights were playing across it. So at one moment you might come across and have a nice green look to it. And then the same pavilion would take on a whole different character as they bathed it in a different color scheme. Very eye-catching. Also fountains down below. And again, how it changes from moment to moment. It was really a great, inexpensive way for them to draw attention to it. And they also made sure that the General Motors logo is very prominently lit. Chrysler was there with its giant engine. The air filter rotated around and made sure that everybody got a good view of the word Chrysler. The giant car at Chrysler and its rocket engine. Ford also there. Again, the big three automakers of the time. The cars. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy with the mail. It's always fun here at the Color House. People ask, how do we keep so busy? We never slow down. So the Thailand Pavilion, very nice. When they built this, they actually ran out of gold leaf in New York's state area to build it. At night, it was lit up from inside with lights like this, and it was really a great looking design. Indonesia, another beautiful pavilion, which unfortunately was only open for the 1964 season. That politics got in the way. They closed for 65. And it sat there, didn't look anywhere near as nice in 65 with a ugly New York Police Department sawhorse saying closed. But again, part of Indonesia, little fountains down below, a little reflection on it. It was really a gorgeous pavilion. You also got some great pictures at night, calm waters in the pool, the reflecting pool here, the Unisphere, the lunar fountain. During the day, it was absolutely nothing. It was just this giant blob. But at night, it really took on a whole different look with the lights inside and the way that the water sprays glowed. Coca-Cola and its Carillon, which is now in Stone Mountain, Georgia. The Mormon Pavilion, a replica of the church from Salt Lake City. Again, very well lit up at night with the Angel Moroni up on top. The Festival of Gas, one that always inevitably brings snickers from teenage boys, but it looked nice at night. During the day, you could go in and they would show you the latest gas appliances, give cooking demonstrations, and explain how you could use the heat of gas to make the cool of air conditioning, which I, as a future engineer, found fascinating. I also found it fascinating because we did not have air conditioning where I lived at the time. The thought of ever having it was very attractive. IBM with its lights now finally glowing at night. And now we see the GE Pavilion really popping into its glory. As I mentioned, this light, the light structure on the roof would light up You could do narrow stripes like we see the dark ones here. You could do equal color. You could do it all solid green. It could go really slow and meandering around, and all of a sudden speed up really fast and get people's eyes. It was probably one of the nicest and most eye-catching pictures at night. Matter of fact, when I was getting the pictures ready for this, I found out just how many pictures of GE I had at night and had to start way taking them out, or we'd be here until next week. Nighttime, the moon is out and the Tower of Light with its zillion candle power beam going into the sky. It was really hard to capture this at night. The lights were very, very bright, but trying to capture some of these with the film at the time is really tough. Most of this was ASA 64 or even lower, so not very light sensitive film. To capture these, you really had to come up with a tripod, or since I didn't have the money for a tripod at the time, you would put your camera on something like the top of a trash can and try to get pictures without a lot of movement in them. Johnson wax again, another picture of the solar fountain. The little ones around it all rotated and sprayed water in patterns going around. After the fair ended, the surplus catalogs came out describing, the different things you could buy, and one of the things they were showing in a page in the catalog was these fountains. Philippines, a really nice picture during the night. Down below, those hand-carved wooden panels were bought by a guy that owned the primary wrecking company of the World's Fair, and he has those at a house. I think it's in Glen Cove. It's somewhere in the North Shore of Long Island. Those panels still exist, and he incorporated them into the design of his house. And we'll see more fireworks later, but this is, again, bell system right at the end. They were doing really well with their spot. New York State at night. Just great views, the way the light's all done. Then there were things like Florida. You didn't realize during the day, it's an interesting tower and a giant orange on it. But there was no way to know that this thing was lit from within and that the smaller oranges down below or the orange of it would really pop out. Much more interesting at night than it was during the daytime. By the way, if folks have comments in that, if you put them into the chat, I will see them at the end. And again, if Don or somebody comes up with something that's important, he can try to let me know. Okay. So that's it from that one folder. Let me pop here to the next one. This is just some real quick views of the Unisphere. Again, crowds all gathering around at night. It was really a great spot if you were out with your family and everything, say, meet me at the Unisphere. I mentioned in one of my earlier talks, you didn't realize until you went to the fair how big the Unisphere was, and trying to find somebody was really tough. So after a while, you would say, meet me at the South America side of the Unisphere, and then find out whether or not people could actually, know any particular geography. And some more here. These happen to be May 1965. Not that it's important, but it's just labeled there. DuPont had a great show, chemistry. They went through the night. Most of the pavilions, somebody asked me the other day what hours they were open. Most of the pavilions were open until 10 p.m. at night for their shows and performances. Then they would close, people would start heading out. But most of the restaurants, nightclubs, and other things would stay open past that. Matter of fact, Mitch has a sign about in his collection talking about the hours, how certain things are kept open later. So, but most of the shows lasted until 10 p.m. at night, which was great because again, if you had something like GE could have a two-hour wait, you could go at night and walk right on it, go off and come right back again. So one of the brass rail restaurants, those giant bubbles, I just saw that somebody said that these things were called space flowers, which I never knew until this past week. So you can start learning things over time, even you think you know about the fair and you learn something else. More folks in the fountains. And again, I said not a lot to add to each of these individual pictures. I want to keep them up there long enough you can see them, but again, it was really spectacular because these fountains kind of really made a roaring sound. There was so much water being pumped. It was a spectacular display. So just the sound of it was great. It was also really nice on one of those hot summer nights where it was still 81 when the sun was going down because they gave a very nice cooling spray in the area. Again, Kodak, luminaires. Again, nighttime is just a great way to catch other things that would be lost during the day with the lighting. State of Missouri, they were very proud that they had the replica of the Spirit of St. Louis inside. They also had a mock-up of the Gemini capsule that was being built in their state. And outside you had a Mercury capsule. So they were very, very big participant in the fair. We miss our Sky Streak elevator, don't we? These lasted outside the New York State Pavilion for years. They took them down with a promise to restore them, and they are about as restorable as the Titanic is. So if they ever do get the pavilion open, it's going to be new elevators, not rebuilt Sky Streaks. Oh, this is a great one here. This is nothing particular looking wise, but it's the Ireland Pavilion, and they had a very popular Irish coffee bar, and a lot of people would go there during the day, but at night it became very popular among certain people just to stop at home and have a little spot of Irish coffee before you hit the road. What a great combination, right? A nice alcoholic drink and the New York highways awaiting you. Again, just going back to looking at Sweden. Tower of Light again. Sometimes you could see the tower lit up. Oh, one thing on the Tower of Light, by the way, I was going to say sometimes you could make out the beam of light. Sometimes you could not. But just like the GM Pavilion, they changed it in colors. There were aluminum panels all around it. And you'll look at it sometimes and the Tower of Light will be predominantly blue. Then it would be predominantly green or yellow. So again, they changed the lighting during it. And it was kind of intoxicating as you'd look over to see what was going to come next. The metal structure that you can see going up and down and then across the entranceway, folks may know the sad story that happened with that. Was a metal structure held together with wires, and it was sold after the fair at an auction. And the fellow that put it together got a call from the guy that bought it, and the artist was very thrilled that he was going to be able to reconstruct his sculpture someplace else. Turned out the guy that bought it just wanted to know exactly what type of metal he had bought at the auction because he wanted to know when he melted down what it was going to be worth. So really sad. I mean, this sculpture is just gone. The guy, the artist did others, but can you imagine getting the call and thinking, oh, it's going to live, it's going to be around? No, what type of metal did you use? Sad. Oh, this is a nice view of the United States Pavilion at night. This was all done with plastic panels. We'll see these in others where they lit up. It was called Colwall plastic sheets. There were lights inside the pavilion, so it really glowed at night. But the pavilion was raised up on 4 massive legs. You can see 3 of them in this picture. You entered in the center stairway, and there was also an elevator inside one of the pillars for the handicap to go up. But this really anchored this part of the fair at night, really glowed. Part of the Vatican Pavilion. A couple of years ago, Carol and I went to visit some friends in Maine, and this sculpture is still up there at a monastery up outside of Kennebunkport, Maine, so you can go and see part of it. It's there, and it is lit up at night too. It's kind of neat to still see it. Part of the Astral Fountain, just the massive amount of water streaming from it. You can see if you look closely, there's little streams of water that came out of these stars. Not all the stars had jets in them, but a lot of them did. And this cage would rotate around. The thing would stream out water out of the stars. It came pouring water up in the center. And it turned out to be so powerful that they had to turn it down on windy days because everybody in the vicinity would get absolutely soaked. So they ended up putting a wind vane and a wind measuring device in there, and it would tone down the fountain as the winds came up. But the fountains were a big part of the fair. When you go back to New York today, the Unisphere, the fountains are run periodically, mostly during the tennis events, but they never fill the fountain up as much as they used to because people would jump in it and use it as a swimming pool. Again, DuPont at night. We can see the fountains over in the right here doing their little squiggly swirling around pattern that I mentioned earlier. More GE. Now you can see they've changed the colors a bit. We've got some green, we've got some red, yellow, orange, blue. That was, again, it, they didn't have the ability to do anything other than swirl. It couldn't make patterns or words or anything like that. But this was super high tech in 1964 to be able to do this. Hey, for us Disney fans, the Tower of Light, I'm sorry, the Tower of the Four Winds, rather, in dead center, and over to the right, the main sign for It's a Small World. This was the kinetic sculpture, all powered by wind, designed by Raleigh Crump, built for the fair. Unfortunately, did not come back to Disneyland after. Raleigh did not like his design. He had built a very intricate model with very lacy support structures. The engineers decided it would blow over in a New York hurricane, so they really beefed it up. I always thought it was absolutely wonderful the way it came out. Raleigh didn't like it, and it did not get brought back to California. And again, just pictures of the New York towers in their glory, back when they still had a base on it. I've never quite figured out how they got the concrete to stick up there when they were putting it together. So maybe some concrete guy can tell us how they did that. Up at the top of the tower, looking over to the transportation area, again, you had way in the back, you can see up at the very top corner of the screen, the lights of New York City. This was not a smoggy night. You can see one of the bridges over there, but just all the lights lit up, the street lights, the lights on the different pavilions. It was just a great time to go up there at night and get a view. Looking again from up there, as I mentioned, the United States Pavilion in the background with the colored panels. Unisphere looked great. And again, more of the colored panels for the United States Pavilion. Very sad that it sat there for a number of years. Joey and others scavenged pieces of it as they tore it down. They were just never able to find a suitable home for it. Had a mysterious fire, ruined the building, and now it's all but history. But it did look nice at night, didn't it? And there's Shea Stadium in the background. Way off to the left, the lights of the LaGuardia Airport. Again, Vatican at night. This was a nice one I liked. The AMF monorail station really lit up at night. They made it with translucent panels, so they were really able to pound it with light from the inside and have it glow like that. So you can see one of the AMF monorails coming to or going from the station. Can't really tell which way because the trains were symmetrical. The Ringling, it wasn't the Ringling Brothers Circus. Oh, was it? Anyway, the circus was there for part of the fair. Again, people did not go to things like the circus, the ice skating shows, or other things because they had to pay for them. And you could always see another circus, but you could only see one World's Fair. But didn't that monorail station just really, come out at night? Just really got your eye. Again, Chrysler's giant engine. Their whole island in the middle of the transportation area glowed at night. They had all the white lights around it and all the nice chairs that you could sit in. And if you sat in some of them, you could get a nice view towards the fireworks. Others were facing the opposite direction. You can see the texture lines on the Unisphere here where they contoured the various mountain ranges and things like that, all done out of sheets of stainless steel. Again, another view of Coca-Cola, kind of one of the forgotten soft drinks of the World's Fair. Their pavilion was so inferior to Pepsi. I probably overdid the GE pictures or the New York State pictures, but heck, it was a great time at night. Again, we're up at the top of the New York State Pavilion Towers, just taking a look down below. Again, the lights of the city were also out in the distance, just the suburbs of Queens and all the street lights and everything. So you had the fair lit up. It was really Fantasyland lit up at night and a great view. So if they ever do get this opened up to the public, most of the fairgrounds will be dark during the evening, of course, but still everything else in the background would be great to see. Again, the Tower of Light, as I mentioned, different color patterns. So parts of it, green, blues, and purples and yellows. Kind of a neat way that they did it. Little pictures of things like here, the UAR. This was Egypt. During the day, you would not have any clue that those two panels to either side of the door were as colorful as they were. They really just showed us, kind of blah images during the daytime. At night, they really popped out. must be showing that I'm Catholic with all the pictures of the Vatican Pavilion. Again, pictures like this, you really had to use a very steady camera to get. So things you'll see at times like the Skyway would be running. You'll see the two towers there, but the cabins will turn into blurs going across the sky because they were in motion during it. This was an interesting one because the fountains were normally going in here on this particular pool, and they were turned off for whatever reason, and were able to capture the way the trees were lit. This is Gotham Plaza. It's the main entrance or exit to the fair when you came in off the subway. A lot going on in this particular area. You had one of the General Foods arches over to the right. They had message boards lit up, controlled from the administration building with a ticker tape that they would punch in a computer, run in there, and they could tell you what was going on, the attendance for the day, what shows had what lines, that sort of thing. And again, just some of the international pavilions with the Unisphere hiding off there in the background, sort of a foggy night. Oh, somehow some of these pictures got duplicated, so we'll skip through New York again. And you can get some really nice reflections off the water in some of these shots. And then again, another view of the monorail station. They had sold the monorail to a fellow in Texas that was hoping to run it to some airports. It never came to be. He turned one of the monorails into a playhouse for his kids, and unfortunately, it was lost. I think it was last seen about 7 to 10 years ago, and nobody knows if it ended up in a scrapyard or whatever happened to the rest of the monorail system. But as I mentioned, the New York State Pavilion kept busy at night. All during the day, they had performances, different things going on. It was a great way for your band or your singing group to be seen at the fair. It was also a masterful thing for the fair to invite all these people, because whatever group this is performing in the center, everybody that's watching them from their families all had to pay admission to come in and see them. The performers got free admission, the families did not. Again, more of Chrysler. The Equitable Life Insurance, they had this giant meter over there that would tell you the population of the United States at any point in time. I've mentioned before that a lot of us were convinced they had doctors calling to say that Mrs. Jones just had a baby, knock it up. Oh, and Mrs. Smith had twins, put it up too. Oh, sorry, we lost Mrs. Smith, drop it down 1. No, it was all just statistical projections. It wasn't the actual thing at the fair, attendance or population rather of the United States that particular moment. But as a kid, I thought, boy, they must have a bank of operators just talking all the emergency rooms, and gee, the number never seemed to actually go down, just kept going up. Foggy nights. Some nights at the fair got very foggy, being right off the water there, and it gave it a whole different look. And I have some pictures where you could barely see down one of the streets to the other end. It could get really pea soup foggy, like San Francisco type or Seattle type weather at times. So it gave it a different ambiance. And again, the metal framework of the fountains, just a great way to hide all the mechanism inside. And these jets, I have aerial photos on my site showing you how the plumbing work that was done to put this fountain work together was just massive. And off we go looking at more fountains. It's too bad I didn't have the ability to synchronize some of the music, the background music for these. Again, nice shot of GE and the Tower of Light, the water being very placid at this particular moment in time. It was sometimes tough to get nice pictures with this reflection because it could be breezy at the park, grounds during the day or during the night, being right off the bay. So the water was actually, finding a shot like this where it was calm is very rare because the water was almost always rippled. And some of the pavilions that were not particularly special, like the Hong Kong pavilion, did look a lot better at night than did look inside, where it was just nothing but cheap stalls and shops. Again, just a night view of the fountain area. Bourbon Street, one of the big disappointments of the fair, the Louisiana Pavilion, didn't look like anything in particular. I just happened to put this slide in there because, again, to think that people went home because it was too expensive to eat at the fair, you could have had a Steak dinner, roast beef, or baked fish for $1.69. You know, but back in 1964, that $1.69 was almost another ticket for an adult to come back to the fair at another day. So this kind of interesting one. Dancing Waters mentioned this when we were doing the chat about the Disneyland Hotel. They had one of these shows. They did shot, basically it was inside this giant tent. You can see the white structure in the background, and water played on it to music, and live performers would come out and dance to it. It's the same technology used to a much higher level of degree today on the Fantasmic shows at the Disney parks. But again, water curtains providing the background for music, lights, films, that sort of thing. Taking a look over at Ford again. The cars going through the Magic Skyways there. Going to go visit the dinosaurs. Hawaii, again, some of these pavilions I went to once because they charged admission. I think it was $25 to get into the state of Hawaii. But you got a plastic lei that you could wear around your neck for the rest of the day until you realize how hot it can be in New York wearing a giant wad of plastic around your neck. So I think I still have the lei in a box, but I just crammed it in my pocket and took it home. But at night just looked great. IBM again getting their money's worth out of the lights that they added onto it. This area in front was a garden area. It was supposed to be another pavilion that was canceled when the backers couldn't come up with the money for it. So they turned it into a garden of meditation. During the day, it was a very quiet area for people just to get away from the hustle and bustle of the park. I just happen to like this particular view because, again, the very tranquil setting gave a nice reflection off the Kodak Pavilion. And some of the international pavilions were very nice at night. Again, New York State Pavilion. Why did I say New York State? I'm in a daze. The United States Pavilion. Oh, for folks that likes, how anybody from New York? Tad's Steakhouse. The last Tad Steakhouse, I think, closed about 2 years ago, but there was one at the Wisconsin Pavilion, which was a great place. My dad used to love taking us to Tad's either in New York or when we went to the fair. We would look forward literally for a month or more to going to the Tad Steakhouse Pavilion and having a restaurant dinner there at the Wisconsin Pavilion. Just great. And as the thing said, you could also see the world's largest cheese. So can't miss that. New York State, the multiple towers. We have the VIP levels and everything going up there. That bottom level, I don't think we've ever seen people out there on. Actually, once or twice. Yeah, the Festival of Gas. More Hawaii with their leis that they're giving you as you go in. Again, for our Disney fans, we have the Tower of the Four Winds lit up very nicely at night. We'll see a picture of Mickey out here later. More of Thailand. 7-Up was there. They were the other soft drink company. They didn't have any big show. Their big attraction was meals from around the world that you could get very cheaply and with an unlimited supply of 7-Up. It was very popular. You could go in and get a tray of food that might have come from Germany or from another country, all themed to go along with your glass of 7-Up. And then they had live musicians playing in the little structures outside. So it was a nice spot to relax. And if you like 7-Up, you could drink yourself silly with it. Tower of Light again with a different color scheme. Some of my favorite parts of the fair, the fountains, the Unisphere, and New York State all together. The Austria Pavilion, as we unfortunately know, lasted for a bunch of years. It became a ski resort upstate New York, and then unfortunately burned down in a massive fire. I believe the ski resort got rebuilt with a different building, but rebuilt, ready to get open. And now we'll see what COVID does to the poor guys. Whoever owns this place must just be jinxed. Belgian Village looked great at night. And again, the Bell System, massive structure. This was built by American Bridge Company, the same people that built the Unisphere, the same company that built the United States Pavilion. They were really experts in building cantilevered structures. So that entire giant pavilion was held up by those 4 pillars up there. when you look at these things today, to think that people would spend that time and money to build something for 2 years and tear it down. Well, this was kind of an interesting one. Better Living Center, great to go up and look down on, but a really bland structure. They built it, and it was really ugly. It was just a do nothing building. So they put these giant streamers along the building that would try to break up the fact that it was a bland nothing building. They would kind of blow in the wind, but when there was no wind, like not here, you can see the flags are hanging limp. The structure, the streamers they added to the building just hung there limply, and just kind of made it show that it was a total lackluster area. We're at the China Pavilion, and for some reason the restaurant's closed at the moment, but aren't those impressive, neat doors? I'd like to think that somebody has those still around, maybe even just the door knockers. They're kind of neat. Denmark was a great spot. You could go and have a wonderful meal. They had several restaurants there. They also had a playground, so you could drop your kids off there and come back and pick them up, and go see some of the fair as adults and not have to worry about your kids. And the kids inside were playing with this amazing new toy introduced to the United States called Legos. And again, just more people wandering around, milling through the grounds. Oh, there's Mickey. Mickey, during the beginning of the fair, Mickey would come down and mingle with the crowds. And then when some New York kids decided, hey, it'd be neat to throw Mickey Mouse into the fountain here, Mickey spent the rest of his life at the fair up where he was safe and he could wave to people from up above. You also got some interesting shots of things. To Broadway with Love was the Texas Pavilion. This was a giant, very elaborate show, very well done tribute to Broadway, and it was a tremendous flop, because why would you go see a show about Broadway when the real Broadway was there, was always going to be there, and let's go do something else. But just like I said, at night, you can kind of catch some neat things, like the Shriners were obviously in town this week. Now, this is, again, an example of why the fair was great at night. Look how empty the streets are. We're up at the top of the New York State Pavilion looking out. The streets are really deserted. You could really see so much and do so many things when the crowds were down this much at night. Again, more Chrysler. Well, this is one of the entrance pylons. They built these pylons at each entrance to the fair. Giant, massive towers. These things are much, much bigger than you would think, but they lit them up from below with lights, and the idea was you would tell your parties, meet me at the entrance pylon inside the Gotham Gate, or the the River Gate, or the Stuyvesant Gate, or anything else. So some of these were sold to the theme park in Massachusetts after the fair, which I believe they are now gone, but just kind of a night view with the angles on it. The fireworks are going on, and that's what they did at GE when the fireworks came on. They had a deal with all the pavilions around the fireworks that they would dim their lights around the Pool of Industry at night. So when the fireworks show would start, they would dim down the lights on the GE pavilion, they would dim down the lights on Travelers Insurance and all that, so they did not take away from the lighting effects and everything for the fireworks show. So it's kind of neat that they all the pavilions cooperated and did that. Kind of a dusk view from the top of the New York State Pavilion. Again, all sorts of different pavilions lighting themselves up at night, different colors, lights. It was just kind of neat. And again, one of my favorite luminaires. And I believe this is Masonic Pavilion. New York State again. The tower. Someday I hope that tent looks that good again. Parker pen. Everybody getting one last pen pal before you went home. I don't know if anybody in this call ever had a pen pal. I got one, sent a letter, never heard back. Other people said they've been in touch with their pen pal for the last 50 years, so it's kind of neat. The Simmons Land of Enchantment Beauty Rest. You could go and rent an alcove and take a nap, which always amazed me. You spend the money to go to the World's Fair, so you could go take a nap. I don't think they sold a lot of naps. And again, just to look at, you can see here, by the way, that this was done with a tripod, because you can see the people blurring as they're in movement as they go past. You really needed to have something steady. Most amateur shots of the fair, if you did not have a tripod or put it on top of a trash can, just did not come out. I probably should have cut back the number of pretty pictures of the Unisphere. Looking through the archways of the Vatican Pavilion. We're over at the Belgian Village now. The carousel lit up at night. This carousel is now up in Montreal. It was brought up there for Expo 67. Again, the monorail, sleek, modern. I mean, we were all going to have these in our cities. It was just going to be the highway of the future. Unfortunately, it's not come to be. And Chrysler at night. More Ford at night. The Hollywood Pavilion, for those of us who live in California, it's very reminiscent of Mann's China, whatever the name of it. It was Grauman's, then it was Mann's. I don't know who owns the Chinese theater today, but we can go see the real one in Hollywood if and when theaters ever reopen in Los Angeles. Excuse me, nice night view. Another view of the Masonic Center. Just click through some of these so we don't keep everybody too late. Again, here's the Thailand Pavilion. After the fair, went up to Expo 67, stayed up there for years. This was a night shot when they were getting ready to open the fair. You can still see it's under construction, but this was one of the first nights they actually lit up the United States Pavilion to see how it was all going to work out. The Wisconsin Pavilion is now a radio station up in Wisconsin. They no longer, for a while, they had the largest block of cheese, but they do not anymore. They just have a replica because evidently cheese, even if you refrigerate it, does not generally keep for 50, 60 years. Over at the American Express Pavilion, the tower, the tree of money tree was all lit up. And just flipping through these here. New Jersey, they had their tents all set up, these tent structures where they had performances during the day and different museum exhibits, but it was nicely lit up at night. The metal poles that held up the tent structures were well lit and gave a nice angular look to it. This fountain's outside the New York City Pavilion. The fountain work, I think, is still sitting there. I don't think it's ever run since the fair, but there's one of these at either end of the structure, now the Queen's Museum. This was kind of interesting. When I've mentioned this stained glass window before, some people got in touch with me and said, we have a stained glass window in our church. We think it came from the World's Fair. Do you have a picture of it? I found it, sent them to them, and they said, oh yeah, we're trying to restore our window. And I said, where's your church? Well, it turns out it's about 4 miles from me. So this window was particularly built for the World's Fair. The church left a giant hole in their brand new building for 2 years, brought the window back out, and I must have lived here 25 years before I even knew that I drove by it all the time. So it's kind of interesting, the little connections you make, but a nice view of the Protestant Pavilion. I want to go ride a monorail. Now the doors are open and you can see how beautiful it looked going inside the China Pavilion into the Chinese restaurant. And again, just more pictures. Oh, there you can see the fountains at either end of the New York City Pavilion going. Theaterama looking up at the towers. This was one of the last structures that was torn down during the demolition of the fair, this cross at the Protestant Pavilion. And it wasn't that anybody had any particular attachment to it or that there was any particular reason they left it up, other than when you reduce a World's Fair to rubble and you tell people, go pick up the steel at the Protestant Pavilion, it's really nice if you have a marker that stands above the rubble to show where it was. So I've got pictures of the demolition, and almost all the fairground is demolished, torn to the ground, giant piles of debris everywhere, and this one lone cross standing out there looking very sad by itself. The Singer Bowl, now buried under the tennis center. No, they did not sell sandwiches for those of us who live in California. Subway in New York, obviously people ride it, but this would get you back to the exit on the way home. The Saturn V Boattail section over at the Hall of Science. Billy Graham Pavilion. Again, a lot of these you not see inside during the day, so the night shots kind of gave. And a lot of people did not go into these pavilions and take pictures inside because, you know, film was very expensive. So a lot of times the only views we actually have of what the interiors of some of these looked like were these peekaboo shots were accidentally caught, you know, from the outside at night. Again, GE during the fireworks show, not very impressive, but they still kept the show going, so the escalators are still lit up, but they blacked it all out for the fireworks. More of the Hollywood Pavilion. And again, poor old Indonesia. Lunar Fountain. I'm just going to flip through some of these. We want to get into the fireworks show because they did do some really spectacular fireworks. Looking down from New York at New Jersey. And that, of course, everybody in New York always looks down at New Jersey, so it's kind of appropriate. Sorry, as an ex-New Yorker, I couldn't resist. Just kind of a neat moonlit shot. And again, it got very empty at night. Look at this, the fair is open and there's hardly anybody there. This meant no waiting for anything when you wanted to go see it at this time of night. I had a friend whose sister worked at the Bell system, and this was great for us because my parents didn't like to stay at night. My younger brothers rightfully got tired. They'd want to take them home. But if we went to the fair with our friend from the Bell system and she worked until 10, this was the perfect time for us. So we'd be running around seeing everything we could. Then we'd meet her up for the ride back out to Long Island. This is the India Pavilion. You can see some of the displays inside. Again, Indonesia. This one I particularly liked. A lot of these slides are done on 35 millimeter slides. This one happened to be done on a 4x5 image, a much larger one. And you can see again, GE now they've decided to go just to a multicolor pattern on the lights instead of the swirling lights. But I just really like this one because the amount of clarity and detail that in there. New York off in the distance. This is the Better Living Center, not a spectacular building, but kind of interesting at night just to get the angles on it. Tower of Light and GE in the background. The Japan Pavilion. Sierra Leone, one of the poorest nations to exhibit at the fair. Matter of fact, they were so poor that the people living in the pavilion were unable to pay their rent and started living and hiding out in the pavilion at night. It did not return for the 65 season that became the United Nations Pavilion, but I just happen to like the way this fountain got captured with the flash at night. And then nighttime also brought some, different things here. This was a little snack bar that was added for the 65 season. So insignificant, it didn't even show up in the guidebooks or the maps or anything. But I just got a big kick out of, when you think about how much everything is today. You get your hamburger for 29 cents, a twin flavor ice cream cone. I mean, this was the sort of stuff that fit my budget. I did not have the budget to go to Tad's Steakhouse if Dad wasn't treating. So when I would go with my buddies and everything, we would be very much going for the brass rails, this unnamed snack bar, but being able to have a World's Fair waffle for 99 cents. You notice they couldn't call them Belgian waffles because that was, exclusive to the people actually selling Belgian waffles, but anybody could sell a World's Fair waffle. And again, just flipping through some of these. I don't want to keep people too long, so I think I'm going to hop out of this general folder of pictures from the fair at night and hop over to fireworks, because they really did do a spectacular job with fireworks at night. Okay, fireworks. Like I said, I really enjoyed the fireworks show. They had different theme music. So one night you would have the patriotic show, then another night you'd have the Old West show, another night college themed show. But so if you went to the fair 2 nights in a row, you got two different fireworks show, because the music and the fireworks were themed together. And if you go to my site, I do have the music for most of the fireworks shows on there. And 4th of July, you can run around with a sparkler in the backyard. But they were really great shows. Again, every night they did these shows. They did spectacular displays, was all synchronized to the music. You can see some nights like this one are kind of windy. The water is being blown all over the place. The fireworks are being blown all over. But it was a spectacular exhibit to be there. After the fireworks ended, the grounds really emptied out. It was mostly the adults staying around to go to the place that sold liquor with their drinks and that. But a very, very popular part of the fair going experience. This one I got a kick out of. These 64 shot, because you have the escorters in here. But these people in the escorters had actually paid the drivers to take them over there to see the show. So now they had a place to sit during the fireworks show. The drivers got paid during the time they were sitting there. And then now, as soon as the fireworks show would end, they could drive them right out to the exit and try to avoid all the crowds. So those were people that had money they could pay to do that. Feel like we should be going ooh, ooh as these go by. But again, just spectacular with the music blaring from all the speakers that were hidden inside the luminaires, and they had other speakers inside around the grounds, to put out the music for the shows. And you can see they were very, very popular. This is the GE pavilion off to the right there. So people were packed up way back. Anywhere you could get a view down one of the streets into the fireworks display. Or again, if you got to go up to the top of the Better Living Center, you got a real good one. I imagine living in this area would be like living in Anaheim. During the summers of the fair, you get a free fireworks show every night. I also imagine everybody that had a young baby was cursing the fireworks show every night when they were trying to get their kids to go to sleep. Whoops. There was a grandstand for VIPs that could go and watch the fireworks show that I never qualified for, but if you were of the select type, you get a grand view of it. So you had both low fireworks, coming out of the fountain areas, and then those mortar shells going off over above. And again, the music was going, the roar of these fountains, it's really, you look at the picture and it's so quiet and static today. It was really spectacular going off and seeing this in the evenings. Amazing what you can do with a camera and a tripod. So that is it for looking at the fireworks. Let me come back here and I will see if I can get to meeting controls. 1 second here. Okay. Sorry, I've got a couple other windows that have decided they needed to pop up here on my screen. I need to make go away. You are sharing your screen. Okay, stop share. Yay, okay. People are still there. I never know. You turn the screen sharing off, I expect to just see Carol sitting there. So, well, I appreciate folks sitting through it. If people have questions, if you use the raise your hand feature, a little hand should show up on your icon, or wave frantically. I will look for you and unmute you. And if people have any comments or observations, I'd love to hear them. And then I will go through the chats. So let me go back up here to the beginning. Wow, a whole bunch of them. People are chatting away. Okay, let's see. Super happy, appreciate it, participate, but Bill and Carol, please don't feel you have to do this with no break. I am going to take a break in 2 weeks from now because I have to go and have more dental surgery. So we missed it because I had to have some dental work done a couple weeks ago. I'd much rather be here in 2 weeks, but I'm also looking forward to getting the implant put in and getting this empty spot in my mouth out. So yeah, we're happy to see Carol here. We are too. I tell you, she's making an amazing recovery, faster than I would ever dared hope for. The address for the pictures and music, excuse me. Oh, down below, I think Ken put it down. worldsfairphotos.com, and then go to 1964 page, and then you'll see a little icon for music and that sort of thing. We've identified most of the background music that was played during the fair. There's still some that has escaped us. If you've got a real ear for music and you're able to tell us what any particular piece of music is, please do let me know, and we will be glad to put it in there. Okay, let's see. Oh, and Beth did put the detail thing in there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm just going through these. Yeah, Beth, I've listened to a lot of the unlabeled music, but I haven't been able to identify. Sometimes every now and then I'll just go back to the unidentified music and try to use Spotify on it. And every now and then it does come up with one. But there's a lot of Sousa waltzes and others. And after a while, I love Sousa waltzes, but after an hour of it, they all sound absolutely identical to me. So, yeah, and, another NYWF rabbit hole to be drawn into and explore. I'm sorry I didn't realize the slides were going so fast. I think what happens on some of them, excuse me, is that I see them right away. I think there's a bit of a lag sometimes on getting them out there. So I apologize for that. What is the tower in front of the Bell exhibit? That was a microwave tower. It was the official way that they got everything in and out of the fairground. It was both voice, but it was also used for all the video feeds that were going from the fairgrounds out to all the news stations and other things. On my site, if you go to the Bell System page, there's actually a whole one or two or maybe more pages on building the microwave tower. Like I said, I was fascinated. I ended up working for Ma Bell after the fair. Spoiler alert. Okay. Oh, okay. We'll look at that later. In the overview of the pool, what were the numbers to the right at IBM? Okay, mention that. That was the Equitable Life numbers. Sorry again if some of these slides went too fast. I just never want to just bore people just looking at an empty picture. I'm sorry I went too fast. The big pictures from Kodak, are they available for viewing? No, they were actually done in strips. So that there was not one giant picture, but it was about 9 strips of special paper that they put up. And they actually used a suction device to hold the paper flat against the surface of it. Afterwards, they just basically took them down, threw them out because there was no place else that was built anywhere in the world to display these. So at some point in time, I am going to try to figure out what picture was on the Kodak Pavilion at what period of time. But Kodak, when they did their implosion years ago, I wrote to them and they had no records of anything connected with the World's Fair whatsoever. Because I've tried to ask, do you know how many pictures there were, who the photographers were? They didn't have anything. The Eastman Kodak House did not have anything on it either. Okay. Photos are amazing, especially considering the sensitivity of film at the time, and most of those that you took yourself, the really blurry ones are the ones I took myself. No, occasionally I got a good one. I had an uncle that was really into photography. I've mentioned before, my Uncle Steve, and he was really just the one that got me into photography. I had basically had a little, one of the cameras you put in, roll the film, like in the old Disney cartoon where you're always rolling and trying to get it going. And it took sort of great so-so films. My Uncle Steve really got me into 35 millimeter photography, and it was a love relationship for both of us, because my Aunt Loretta would ask him about, Steve, you bought another camera? And he goes, oh yeah, Billy needed another camera. My Aunt Loretta must have thought I just killed cameras at an amazing pace because my Uncle Steve was always giving me a new camera. But he was the one that taught me about things like f-stops and shutter speeds and things like that, and just had great fun learning from him over the years. It would be nice to show the same shot in day and nighttime. I could try to look to do that. Yeah, entertainment section, the lake entertainment. That was where the Texas Pavilion, the monorail, some of the other things were. Semi-cheesy would be right. The Florida Pavilion, the large top orange lit from inside. No, it did light up, but it was kind of a dull lighting. It wasn't really particularly bright. The fair had an interesting thing with lighting that they had to keep in mind was they were right near an airport. They were right near LaGuardia Airport. So all the lighting had to be done and be approved that it did not distract from any of the planes that were on approach to LaGuardia Airport. And there was a lot of confusion whether or not they were going to be able to actually light up the Tower of Light at some points in time. Today, they probably would not let you do it. But back then, like I said, it was all coordinated with the FAA. How many hotels, motels are built to accommodate all the out-of-towners, and they still in existence? A whole bunch were built for the fair. Some are still around as hotels. A lot of others have been turned into senior living centers and things along that sort of ilk. Who sponsored the Tower of Light? That was the electric power industry. That was Reddy Kilowatt, if you remember his symbol, a little guy built out of electric bolts. So it was investor-owned power companies across the United States. So if you were in, I don't know, make up a town, Potsdam, New York, you'd have the Potsdam Electric, Cooperation would be a member of this giant utility conglomerate, and they were the ones that sponsored the Tower of Light. It had a show inside it. Besides just the Tower of Light, the beam that went up into the sky, it also had a theme show inside where you had a animatronic type of figure of Ben Franklin talking about electricity over the years and all the things that it had done for people. United States Pavilion, the best haunted house. Yes, Joey took pieces of it home. Okay, Beth has given us a guide there for the Carillon at Stone Mountain. Thank you. Hey, somebody else liked Tad's. Tad's was great. I love Tad's. It was just wonderful. The price went up a little bit over time, but we were in New York a couple of years ago, and I took my kids to Tad's, and they were trying to figure out what Dad's fascination was. To me, I was 12 years old again, having a Tad steak, thinking about my dad. So it was great time. At 7-Up, all the 7-Up you wanted, but you had to make a lot of trips to the fountain because they had 4-ounce cups. I hadn't realized that. That's the things you don't think about. But yeah, if you gave everybody these great crowd pleaser jugs today, they would all fill them up, wouldn't they? So, but it was great fun. Is the fair a safe place to be at night from a security standpoint? Yeah, very much so. Very few incidents occurred at the fair at night of a bad nature. There was one, unfortunately, I know of where a guy did get killed. There was some kids that came in. They rode into the fair in a truck that was making a delivery, and they came out and they didn't like the way some guy looked at him, and they asked him for a nickel, and he told them to get lost. So they got mad at him and stabbed him and killed him. So that was unfortunate. That was the only major thing I could think of at night. If you go to my site, there's a newspaper story about how the head of the Belgian village and the number 2 of the Belgian village got the crap kicked out of them by the Pinkerton guards at a fight one night. So the Pinkertons evidently were trouble at night with some of this stuff. But overall, from the incidents at night, very small amount of problems when you consider the number of people that went through there, which was really gratifying. Again, that's why my parents did not mind me and my brother going. I was 12 the first year, he was 11, because they felt that it was a fair, the fair was a safe environment. Pen pals from Montreal stayed in touch for quite a while. Yeah, you had better luck than I do. So the Chinese theater is now the TCL Chinese theater. Nah, to me, it's always going to be Grauman's. More notes about pen pals. Oh, somebody else, Derek G. O.B. Grauman to him. Great minds think alike. Chrysler Giant engine. The it did have animation, but that's when you went inside and you went under the giant car, you could see the pistons moving and all sorts of things turning. Outside the general, the big engine, the air cleaner rotated around, and I think the fans rotated, but I don't think anything else was in motion. And Shelley says the official scale model in the American Express Pavilion also beautifully lit up during the nighttime sequence. Yeah, that was a great model. It was a neat thing. It would be neat to hear more about pen pals. Like I said, I had no luck on it. More, oh, Legos of Luminaires. I'll have to check that out. I always remember the challenge of deciding to go to the fireworks or the bell system. Yeah, that was the tough thing. I mean, that was the nice thing at night. Everybody went to watch the fireworks, so the rest of the fair was empty, but the fireworks were so good, you did not want to miss them. The GE show, the same as ended up at Disneyland? Yep, sure was. Basically, the carousel part with the family and the scenes was the same thing. The only thing they did was it revolved in a different direction at Disneyland. Had the same show, but it did not go into the world of the future. It did not have the Skystone Spectacular and other elements that they had at the fair. But the same show that it moved from the fair to California, now California to Florida. It's still very, very much the same show. I mean, they've modernized the final sequence, because trying to keep up with tomorrow is always next to impossible. But Dad is still there with his dog, and he's still telling him, "Don't growl at the audience." And if you go to Florida to Disney World, you absolutely, positively need to go to the carousel. And matter of fact, that's how I ended up going to work for Disney. I had, people may have heard this before, but for anybody that hasn't, I'll bore the others. I had gone down to Disney World on a day off. I was working at Cape Kennedy, and I walked into the World's Fair, and the Carousel of Progress was still there. And I had not seen this thing, I guess this was 1973, 74. I walked in, and my God, there was the Carousel of Progress. I hadn't seen it in 20 years, 10 years, whatever. I just, wow, I must have ridden the thing 4 times in that particular day. So the thought of being able to go to work for the company that built all this stuff, I ran out to the gift shop, bought a tie, and ended up working for Disney. So if you go to Florida, you absolutely have to see it. And there's hardly ever a line for it because people want to go and get scared on faster things. But the Carousel of Progress is still just wonderful. How did the number of pavilions at this fair compare to past and future ones? They had a large number of pavilions, but a lot of them we mentioned in past talks were not international pavilions. They were done, Robert Moses was a genius in getting the fair built, and he was a butthead in how he did it. He basically, there's a set of rules for building World's Fairs that they can run for 6 months. Robert Moses said, "I'm going to run for 2 6 months." So that was a big issue. You can't charge the international exhibitors. I'm going to charge the international exhibitors. Whatever rule book there was, he just went and broke them all. So if you looked at things like the Japan Pavilion, or we had Morocco, some of the others, they were generally not built by the Japanese government or the Moroccan government. They were built by Japanese companies under the auspices of, the Japan Pavilion. So you had the 64 World's Fair was much more an industrial fair. If you went up to Montreal Expo 67, that was much more an international, a true World's Fair. You did have things like you had Bell of Canada, but a very small exhibit compared to what they had in New York. So the 64 World's Fair was a great event. As World's Fairs goes, it was really not as much of the world as much as American industry. Excuse me. But hopefully someday allergy season will end in California. But it was still a spectacular event, but it did not have the international presence that had originally been hoped for. Yeah, I did not take the 4x6 photo. That was one I acquired. Again, a lot of these pictures that we're seeing are not the ones I took, the ones I've acquired and restored. I have about 25,000 photos from the 64 fair now, and I did not have the budget at age 11 or 12 to afford that. I don't have the budget to afford it now, but somehow I just keep going. So yeah, do I have Dino Land at night? I did, and I unfortunately I took some of them out. They were in the dust sequence in particular, and I can try to show those later. It's the dinosaurs at night. And just think, yeah, somebody mentioned Shazam to figure out the music. I mentioned Spotify before. I was wrong. It's Shazam that I use, and every now and then it does pop up with one of the songs, so it's great. Okay, Ken Carpenter would like to show us something, so we'll get to you in a second, Ken. I'm just going through the rest of these. I'm starting the implant procedure. Any words of wisdom? Yeah, go to my dentist. He's done a great job. If anybody wants to buy any OxyContin pain pills or anything, I never needed any of them. So it's actually worked out very, very well. My only problem is my tongue, as I'm talking, it's been what, 4 months or something since I had this thing done, the bone graft put in, and now they have to put the post in. But even after all this period of time, my tongue says, hey, there's a hole I haven't seen before, and dives into it in the middle of a word. So a lot of time I'm listening to myself and I feel like, oh man, I must sound like I'm drunk or something, because I'll be talking and all of a sudden the word just, the tongue goes off to the right side. I am really looking forward to getting the tooth put back in place. Leslie, ice cream for 25 cents and twin flavors to boot. I was actually thinking of you when I saw that. And Leslie and we joke all the time about ice cream. She loves it. I do. During this the time of the pandemic, I've been well stocked on Mickey bars and getting through them here at home. Annette, Frankie, and the cast of Beach Party movies at the fair, they did come. There's pictures of Annette out there. They had the grandma's Chinese thing that they could put their name in the concrete. And I do have pictures of Annette and them at the fair. Oh, thank you for saying it's a wonderful way to spend a COVID Saturday. Thank you again. What was the name you discovered the balloon structures? Oh, yeah, space flowers. The what you call it? The brass rail balloons. I always just thought them as the dirty gray balloons, but the architect, I guess, actually called them space flowers, and I did not know that. Did I ever see the Daydreamer? Part of it was filmed at the Denmark Pavilion. I have not seen that. I'll have to look for that. There were some other things that were filmed at the fair. Some of it was filmed during the fair, and there's a couple ones you can look on YouTube. I don't remember the names of some of them right now, but there's some very strange and bizarre movies that they shot at the fair. And I do need someday to put together a link and stick them on my site of movies from the fair. Okay. Tower of the Four Winds just broken down, sold for scrap. Yep. It is interesting. There's some people that swear it was dumped into the Flushing Bay. My friends that work for Disney remind me that Walt would never have given or thrown anything away that he could sell somebody for. So they basically sold it for scrap metal. I do have a picture that I was going to show another time. They basically took a lot of the kinetics pieces of it and put them on wood plaques bases with a little bronze plaque or brass plaque, that they gave out to the crew that worked and just kept the thing going. So a friend of mine does have a piece of the Tower of the Four Winds, but most of it apparently was just, according to the Disney folks I know, sold off for scrap metal. Again, people say it was dismantled and tossed into the Hudson. Metal was worth money then. Metal's worth money now. That's why the guy bought the sculpture outside the Tower of Light, because there was metal value in the thing. So the only stuff that would get thrown into the Hudson and everything would be like Jimmy Hoffa, stuff like that. But I do think the Tower of the Four Winds has now been recycled into somebody's GE appliance or a Toyota. Sherman Brothers window dedication, mother and father from the carousel make an appearance. Yep. It was really funny, again, about the Tower of the Four Winds being thrown in the river. We did a spoof. Somebody did a thing years ago, posted on the 4th of July about amazing thing about the Tower of the Four Winds being discovered. And they had all this picture of really blurry stuff in very murky water and everything. And everybody was, oh my God, this guy really went diving and found it. Nope, it was April Fool's Day. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, Daydream is filmed at the Belgian Pavilion. Okay. Well, that's the end of the chat questions. Anybody else have any thoughts, observations? Everybody's so quiet today. Oh, that Ken, you, Herb will get to you in a second, but Ken, you wanted to share something? I need to make you a co-host, I believe, to do that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, just a couple of shots, and this is a little different angle here, but it's in the spirit of you can experience the fair, as it were, at night today, but not, as you might think, at Flushing Meadows Corona Park itself. So let me see if I can share the screen here. I'm just going to go with the desktop so you can see everything. So here is a shot from Manhattan at night, and it's from the top of the Empire State Building. So that's the unusual angle I was talking about. And hopefully you can see my cursor, X moving around up here in the top of this picture. And right here, there's a bright spot. This area here is actually Flushing Meadows Corona Park, and that bright spot is the Unisphere. So I spent quite a long time when I was at top of the Rockefeller Center. This was in March, just the very last trip I did before the COVID hit. And I spent a lot of time in Rockefeller Center, top of the rock, couldn't find it. Went to the Empire State Building, and after much examination of the area and then meeting this guy, one of the guides at the top of the station, Gerard Holquin, who's a huge fair aficionado. So if you ever go to the Empire State Building, it's worth trying to find him there. Anyway, so we talked about it and kind of narrowed down where it should be. And then I went back down. He was up on the 102nd floor. I went down to the 80th floor where they have some binoculars and got this shot through the binoculars, zooming in. And when you do that, you can see the sphere of the Unisphere a bit better. This blue is the Science Museum. And over to the right is the helicopter platform, terrace in the park. And this red spot right here is actually the light at the top of the top of the tallest tower at the New York State Pavilion. So from the Empire State Building, you can actually see these buildings at night and get a little bit of the fair at night. I did, after coming back, dig out this other shot here, which is from a gigapixel daytime image that's a published picture, not mine. And you can see again the Citibank building here, and you can see the same scene basically with the Unisphere there, the Museum of Science there, the terrace in the park, and the tower, which is how in the end we confirmed exactly what we were seeing in the original pictures, and had a lot of help at the beginning from Stephanie Bond and Mitch Silverstein trying to sort this all out and figure out what exactly we were seeing. But it's a neat experience if you get to the Empire State Building after things open back up, kind of being able to see this. And we're a long distance away at this point, but there's enough light there you can actually spot it. So fun times.
It's a good thing the New York air is a lot better than it was in '64.
That's for sure.
Oh, great. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate your sharing those. Irv, you had something? You need to unmute yourself there. There you go.
There you go. Can you do a presentation on construction and demolition? That would be rather interesting.
Well, the construction would be fun. At the end of demolition, people might be slicing their wrists. But yeah, I can certainly do that. I have a tremendous number of pictures of the fair going up, and then unfortunately the fair coming down. So yeah, I can look to do that.
I have 17 high-resolution aerial photos taken in 1963 to construction. I don't know how I could send them to you. It would cover about 17 or 18 megabytes of data.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I can let's link up after, and I can give you a Dropbox page that you could drop them in. That'd be great in case I don't have them.
Yeah, they're really some highly detailed pictures. They're very interesting.
Oh, super. Yeah. Okay. I'll make a note here of that. 1 second. Always looking for topics. So as long as people don't mind being depressed when the fair comes down.
Now, this is all construction shots.
Yeah, so I have the demo ones too. So it it's sad to see it, but I guess it was built for 2 years, lasted for 2 years, and achieved its purpose. But I still remember when I was the fair ended and we would drive by and watch them tearing it down, thinking, what the hell is wrong with these people? I mean,
Yeah,
Well-
what a waste of money in building to tear all that stuff down.
yeah. So I appreciate it. And Barry Howard's on the call. Barry, you were probably there a lot during the construction pieces of it, weren't you? Let me see where he is here. The pictures all pop around here on the screen. So yeah, okay. If you can unmute yourself, Barry.
Yeah. I was fascinated by the fact that what we were looking at was basically architecture. But having done 3 pavilions at the expo from the inside out, the design of the buildings themselves were often misleading with respect to the cutting edge that was used to communicate with the viewer. Certainly, well, I have lots of inside stories. I actually designed a Coca-Cola pavilion, and I was a little uncomfortable when you talked about it being inferior to the Pepsi Cola. We beat out Disney for the Coca-Cola pavilion. They didn't do the Pepsi pavilion until after I was awarded the Coca-Cola pavilion.
Right.
But there was no building involved when I got the work. They bought from me the idea of traveling through 7 exotic places in the world, which we built inside the buildings, and which was the premise for the design. And then I hired the architect who totally screwed me over by building the most boring building I've ever seen in my life. And I fought like it was a really difficult situation. But we did get the interior done, which was way cutting edge, way ahead of other things.
Yeah,
So-
you went with the smellizer type technology, right?
There was aroma, yeah. There was an aroma device. But the idea of what we were able to build inside and to maintain the character of each of the environments within the environment by circulating the audio, the aroma, the lighting, so that when you step from one place on the planet to another, which were diametrically opposed to each other, you completely just were in a completely different place. From Hong Kong to Accra in India and the Taj, and then to Garmisch in a ski lodge way above the landscape. All of that was done in 3D, full constructions. And it was the beginning of what today we call an immersive experience.
Now, how did you feel when the kid that ran away from his family hid out for a week inside your pavilion?
I would have done it myself.
For
I was too old.
the folks that don't know that one, this kid ran away from home and disappeared, and he was living inside the Coca-Cola pavilion. And he would come out during the daytime, go scavenging money at night out of the fountains. But that's how they eventually found him, was he was outside. But I think he was in your jungle scene at Angkor Wat was his favorite little hiding spot.
Yeah, and that was fantastic doing Angkor. That was just amazing. Anyway, but the point is, it's not just true about what I did, but it was true about a lot of other things. I did a little pavilion called the SKF Pavilion, which was across from Chrysler. And they didn't have a lot of money. The first year it was a relatively traditional exhibition. But in the second year, I got together with Jimmy Henson and the Muppets, and we did the funniest damn show that I've done in my whole life in that little pavilion. Sometimes it's the detail that you don't see in the larger scale that sticks in your mind, just for what it's worth.
Yeah, if Jim Brown's been suggesting that we get together and try to have you come on and do one of these chats. So if I'd like to work out a schedule with you, you have so many stories and things I'd love to hear. Do you have any film footage or anything of the SKF Pavilion after you redid the show?
I have slides. I don't have film of anything actually. I used to have many more slides than I have now, but I have a few pieces left. Yeah. In fact, the historian SKF is a European manufacturer of ball bearings. Their name is Svenska Kalaga Fabriken, SKF for the, but they had their U.S. office in Philadelphia. So I really work with them, not with the home office. But anyway, yeah, sure. We have to find a Saturday where I'm not playing tennis. I just we'll find. I'm in Santa Barbara.
So, Santa Barbara. Okay. I knew you were in the same time zone.
Yeah, we're in the same time zone, right? But I usually play tennis on Saturdays. But we'll work something out.
Great, appreciate it. And again, I really appreciate you helping me with pictures of the U.S. Pavilion from New Orleans when I was doing that book.
Well, yeah, you know, that one, of course, I was intimate with also because, again, it was designed from the inside out. The piece of architecture that was the U.S. Pavilion in '84 was nothing. It was a shell. But what went on inside was interesting. So anyway, that's where I come from. I come from the experience design rather than the building itself.
Yeah, most of my pictures, as I mentioned, are going to be of the buildings because inside they just needed so much light, you know, that with the film that was available for people of the time.
Right.
So if you got an interior shot, it was usually, and I do have some nice shots from SKF that I think I got from you as well. You know, you had to have somebody come in, set up lights on tripods and all the rest of that. And
yeah, it was all set up shots. You're right.
Yeah. So for the average person going in, you know, you take a picture if they just didn't work at that period of time. Today with our iPhones, man, everything would be documented. But there's some pavilions at the fair we just cannot find any interiors of because, you know, again, it was just and then you also had, you know, 12 or 20 exposures and you had to, you know, take it, go and get it developed and everything. And so everybody tended to take the exact same pictures. If there was a sign that said Kodak picture spot, everybody took that picture, but they didn't take pictures of other things. And that's why I keep buying pictures. And just a couple of weeks ago, I ended up with some stuff like inside the United States Pavilion that we had never seen before. And why that guy happened to take those pictures, don't know, but you know, very thankful and glad that he did. So
You have 20 million people come through a World's Fair, even in those days. I mean, there were 80 some odd million people went through the expo in China in 2010. I mean, you know, that there must be zillions of pictures.
Yeah, you know what's going to be interesting though is for people like me that like to collect this stuff. Most of it's not going to be available of the most recent collections because I get my pictures when people, you know, their mother dies, the kids don't want it, they throw it on eBay, I buy it. In the future, it's going to be on mom's iPhone. Mom's going to die. Nobody's going to have a backup of it. They're not going to be putting it on eBay. So it's actually, we're in an area now that for future historians, 100 years from now, I think a lot of stuff today is not going to be anywhere near as documented as stuff 50 years ago was because film lasts and lasts and lasts. Digital stuff gone like that.
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a fan. I look at how much I have at least 7 copies of everything digital. I have it stored remotely, backup. You know, other people, disaster recovery sites out of the city, everything. Most people, it's on their phone. I put my kids through college by companies that would say, we made a mistake and erased our database. What do we do? And today, the number of people that say they have their one copy of their, well, my neighbor down the street, had one copy of his daughter's wedding pictures and managed to hose his hard drive. I said, so where's your backup? No idea. So now I feel like I should be a salesman for Carbonite because I keep telling people Carbonite, offsite backup, it's your friend. So yeah, great. We'll have to get together, Barry. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I appreciate what you're doing. Those memories are just fantastic. Sure.
Carol has a question. Oh, this is a very interesting answer you'll get on this. I have a question for the younger crowd. For example, I'm going to mispronounce it. Ali, Can we ask how she got interested in the fair? Very, very interesting story. She and I had a very interesting talk a few weeks ago. So if you'd unmute yourself and let folks know, I think they might get a kick out of it.
Hi everyone. It's lovely to meet everyone over Zoom. Yeah, I got connected with Bill through the Disney Museum in San Francisco. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm actually developing my first feature, which is inspired by the 1964 to 65 World's Fair, and it's inspired by a family story, specifically about a young Chinese American woman who actually was crowned Miss Unisphere, and so that's why I'm interested in the fair and just trying to do the research and everything. And so it's great to find this community. Thank you so much for having me.
She left out the fact Miss Unisphere was
sorry,
also
sorry.
a relative.
Yes.
I'm sorry, may I have your name again?
Ali Shu. Yeah, HSU. But yeah.
Now, I have to bring to your attention that a lovely Chinese lady that I know who teaches architecture at USC, and whose name is Mina Chow. Mina has produced a film
Oh, cool.
which is based on her parents' trip through the New York World's Fair in 1964. And she produced a film in which she decried the fact that the United States of America has been so poorly represented at World's Fairs in the last, since 1970 in Osaka. There really has not been a US pavilion commensurate with the talent of people in this country.
Yeah.
So I would definitely refer you to Mina.
Okay.
Mina Chow. If you give me your email address, I'll send you information about her.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And
What is
Barry,
your? Or you can
put it in the chat there, and then you can see it.
Okay.
You see the
Okay. Or I'll just give you mine. It's Barry at Barry Howard Limited, LIMITED.com. Barry at BarryHowardLimited.com. If you'll send me what you'd like, or I'll get back to you with Mina's contact information.
Okay. Here, can you repeat your email one more time?
BARRY at BARRYHOWARDLIMITED.com.
And Barry, I tell you, I would agree with you about the World's Fairs after. I've been fortunate to go to a number of them, and you go into the U.S. Pavilion, and most of them, it's horrific. You feel like you're in the Nike Pavilion or the Coca-Cola, pavilion.
Well, that was true in 2015 in Seville. It was true in Milan. It was true all the way back in 1992 in Seville. 1993 in Korea was a bust. It was just a little art gallery. And then in China, when everybody was spending billions and billions of dollars for pavilions, the US pavilion stuck in at the last minute. The Chinese were going to build the pavilion for us because we could raise any money. But I think at the time, Hillary got into her Rolodex, and they were able to put up some money. But even so, it looked like a fire sale.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I remember I went to Expo 85, I guess, in Japan, and walked in. I thought I was in a Texas Instruments, sales room. It was really disappointing.
Well, of course, that the theme was new technology. So
yeah, but one company's technology, and
well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, just for what it's worth, a lot of Americans have no idea that there are still World's Fairs being done.
No.
And I bet you that not one 1,000 or maybe more Americans know that there was to be a World Expo opening last month in Dubai. And it's been put off to 2021. And it's supposed to run October through April.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I'm just saying that most Americans think
No.
they're a creature of the 60s.
Yeah, I get
You know.
emails all the time from people asking me about World's Fairs. Baron, did you have something? Hang on here.
No, I was just agreeing with Barry that yes, was aware of Dubai
Oh.
and aware of the other World's Fairs that goes on that, again, most Americans, not that they need to follow it, but just probably it's not in their interest to follow it. Bill, just as a real side note, I had mentioned to you a couple months ago about perhaps allowing me the opportunity to do a small presentation on my thesis project during graduate school. And, I'd said I'd look up the slides and find the drawings and put together something. And I just haven't gotten around to it. But with meeting Barry here for the first time and just now looking at your website, Barry, and realizing what you do, you may find it interesting as well, too. So if you'd still wish for me to, I'd be happy to try to put, together, a small presentation on, my pavilion at Epcot.
Sure. Yeah.
I will now look for this stuff and try to put something together and try to give you a time as to, when I'd be available to do it.
Great. Yeah, that would work out for January. Basically, next week I'm going to be doing Disney World through souvenir slides, the Panaviews and other souvenir slides of Walt Disney World. The following week I'll be sitting in a dentist chair, not thinking of this at all, but screaming. The week after that will be the granddaughter James Algar from Disney did so many of the True Life Adventures and everything. She contacted me this morning and is going to be doing a presentation on the 19th about him. He has a absolute, for any Disney fan, it's a guy's work that he was just astonishing with what he did. So we'll do that on the 19th. I think on the 26th might take the weekend off because of Christmas. People may have other family things to do. And then maybe the week after that for New Year's, I was thinking maybe take a look at Rose Parade floats or something. But yeah, for sometime in January, that'd be great, Baron. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'll see what I can put together. And what happened to you last week?
Last week, Carol had a heart attack. Yeah, she. Last week was the week from hell. On Monday night, Tuesday morning, she wasn't feeling well, and we had her call the doctor on Tuesday morning. He said, "Oh, you better come in here and have this checked out." And she had some chest pains, but a real clenching in her jaw, real distress. And turned out she had a minor heart attack, and she needed quadruple bypass surgery. So,
oh, my Lord.
Yeah. So since I couldn't go visit her last Saturday, every time the phone rang, and boy, I tell you, if there's anybody that hates telemarketers by now, it's me. Because when your wife's in the hospital and they've got their hands in the chest and the phone rings, and normally I don't answer if it says, an unknown number or anything. This time I don't know. It's the doctor, the emergency room. Hi, your mortgage rate has gone up. No, I don't have a mortgage. Thank you very much. Oh, I hated it. But she's doing well back home. And last week was sitting by the phone, nervously awaiting word. But she came home on Wednesday, so it was a great Thanksgiving.
Oh, we all give our best to her. That's I went to the site to look for the password to get in, and I'm thinking, what the heck? You played hooky on us or something like that.
Yeah, but a hell of an excuse. I mean, I told her the things people do to get out of my talks, so. Well, again, appreciate everybody joining us. And Barry, I'll get in touch with you. We'll see what we can work out. And again, next Saturday for Disney World fans, please come and join us, and you'll see some concept art that was sold on souvenir slides. Because when you came to the preview center, Disney, they'll love to sell you stuff. So if there was no pictures of pavilions, because the pavilions weren't built yet, we'll sell you pretty pictures of the pavilions. So appreciate everybody joining, and hope you have a great Saturday, the rest of the day. And again, appreciate folks coming back every week. It's last week, I tell you, I couldn't keep track of what day of the week it was because I didn't have this scheduled to do. So it's like the only thing on my calendar right now is Saturday. So it's appreciated. So Thanks all. We'll see you next week, I hope.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.